feet on the earth, hearts in this moment. Let's begin.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Good morning.
There's going to be a lot of giggling going on in this episode for sure.
Oh, yeah. So welcome, guys. Welcome to the Enchanted Grooming Cauldron.
Thank you, Stephanie, for that beautiful opening.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, chat, because we didn't think about it until last minute. I like that one, though.
I do, too. Nice. I do, too. It works. This will flow better. This is episode 1, everybody, so, bear with us as we try to find our footing.
Yep. So we're the Enchanted Grooming Cauldron. I am Stephanie.
I am Brenda.
And we are both witchy groomers. We are going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll start with why we're here.
Okay.
So how the podcast came up, first of all, is I honestly don't fully remember exactly which episode I was listening to, but it was an episode of Morbid. And they're both witchy. Yeah, I was listening to it before bed, as one does. And so they were talking about like some witchy stuff. I don't even remember what it was about, but it like got my little ADHD brain going on this little woo train. And I was like, we need a witchy groomer podcast. And so I messaged Brenda and I'm like, hear me out. Witchy groomer podcast.
It's pretty much exactly how it's what it's said too.
And then you responded,
let's talk about it when I get back.
Because you were in Kansas City.
I was in Kansas City.
Yeah. I have no concept of time.
Yeah. I don't know if I said I like it, but let's talk about it when I get back. Something like that.
Yeah.
It piqued my interest also.
Yep. Yeah. So then like we got together when Brenda got back and we talked about like what I was thinking, which was a very loose idea. And then we wrote 2 episodes. So
well, we outlined 2 episodes.
Yeah.
See how it goes. I know we have enough material for episode 1. I'm a little worried about episode 2, but I think we'll make it.
We'll do good.
We'll shake it out.
Yeah. We will definitely end up on a tangent
at some point. Yeah.
So we kind of want to make this about how you can blend the witch stuff, the magic, with the magic of grooming.
Yeah, to make our days less mundane.
And so we're going to talk about different like topics every episode.
Yeah.
We're going to kind of like our next episode, we'll just tell you now, is going to be about the summer solstice. And so like we're going to talk about how the summer solstice affects the grooming and also different ways that we can bring our magic into the
to the grooming table.
To the grooming table. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. We'll talk about how we met in this episode and both of our journeys, both grooming and witchy. I think that's pretty much it. We're going to talk kind of about just us this time, kind of get to know you.
Give you an introduction into us. Then you can decide if you want to listen anymore.
Yeah.
You'll know if we're worth listening to or
not. I will say, please give me time on the editing. It will get better. Don't judge a book by its cover on this one. It's going to be my first time.
Figure it out.
I'm very confident I can get it. It's just kind of, I have to figure out this particular
I have like all faith in you.
So it'll be good. It'll be good. And I'm paying for the pro, so it'll do a lot of stuff for me, which is good.
I think eventually we're going to have a Facebook group.
Yeah.
And so
we would like to start kind of we'd like to have a community.
Right. We'll have a community if people want to ask questions before or after an episode. If you have episode suggestions, we will take them. We're hoping to put out an episode every other week, I think is our plan. So we can always use ideas, suggestions. We'll definitely consider because I've like room in my head for 3 topics. That's about it.
We'll get it.
You don't want to hear the same thing for every other week. But
we'll be working on building this. So we want to build kind of a community. We do travel to a lot of the shows, so there's always things that where we could always get together with people. Small groups, please don't make me do big groups. The show's enough.
I got you.
Luckily, I have my emotional support human. Yep, I wouldn't be able to make it through all these shows if it wasn't for you.
No.
So yeah, that is kind of what we're going to be doing.
Okay, sounds good. Let's do it.
And we will eventually have like social medias.
Yeah, we'll Yeah.
We were recording this before I did any social media, so
Yeah.
I won't have any things for you guys, but we will by hopefully the next time we record. So
Yeah. We'll get it. We'll get our lives together.
yeah, we just kind of wanted to get a recording under our wing
Yes.
before we started.
Yeah.
So didn't want to
Fight out more than we could chew.
yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now
And if we, you know, if we
taking one
did
by
one
one
episode and we decided we hated it, then no one even knows.
That's great.
So first meeting our hosts. Do you want to us? That's us. And also there's a nibbler here. He's part of the story I'll tell you about, but he will not be participating. He is napping.
Wake up. I have something to say.
Saying, I am napping. You can also, I say that, and most of you are probably listening to the podcast, but we do plan to also put our recordings onto YouTube. You can watch it.
Wait a minute. I did not sign up for YouTube.
All right. So do you want to talk about grooming background?
I guess I can start there. Want me just to jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I have been grooming for 32 years. I started off working in a vet clinic and found some things there that I didn't like, which led me to start a pet sitting business, the first professional pet sitting business in Racine. That was back in 1992. Then I discovered that Wisconsin had a pet grooming school, an actual brick and mortar pet grooming school. And,
sorry to disrupt, but you also had a toddler.
No, I had two.
You had two.
Yes, I was 20 years old. I was married with two children.
I'm like, I'm doing the math, and I'm like, no, you have a daughter the same age as me.
Yes, I had two at the time. So yeah, exactly.
Boy.
The youngest one was about 6-7 months old when I started working at that clinic. I used to put her in her walker while I cleaned, and she would tool around with crackers. And then I would let the dogs out, clean kennels, and then I would let them back in, and they would race down the stairs, and they would like snatch her crackers out of her hand. And and you know, in hindsight, I don't know what I was thinking, but my kids were fine. They never got bit. It was a different time. Well, I was young too, and I was new to I hadn't even groomed at that point. Yeah. So that was kind of like my first job working with pets. I mean, I had my own pets, but that was my first time working with pets. So I guess I didn't really think about the dangers that could have happened. Yeah. You know, and now I look back and
parenting was very different back then.
I mean,
I was a toddler then, and I did a lot of things that looking back now, I'm like, why did people let me do this?
You're just a baby. I grew up in a bar. That's how parenting. I mean, parenting was when I was little.
I was in northern Wisconsin, like way out there. So I also grew up in a bar. Because none of the restaurants had not bars. Yeah. I mean, it's all bars with you can get some food.
That was how it was. But yeah, so I started off working in a vet clinic, decided that I thought some of the dogs didn't do as well in the boarding situation. So I started a pet sitting business, and then I also found out that there was a grooming school in Wisconsin, and so they actually at the time they had financial aid as an option, and so I went to school, and it was a good course. It was basic. 16 weeks, 600 hours. It was a fairly new school at that time, and it was fully staffed. We had 2 instructors, a financial aid officer, or 2 full-time instructors, a part-time instructor that was also the receptionist, a financial aid officer, and then the owner director who would come in and she would do demonstrations for us from time to time. But so it was when I went, it was a good experience. I know there's been people that have come after me that didn't have the same experience, which I know Stephanie has a school. That's where we're recording this right now. And you've done articles for Groomer about opening a school and what it takes to open a school. And there's so much more to it than just, well, I know how to groom. I'll teach you. There's so much more to it.
Well, and you were talking about how they had financial aid back then. They cannot do financial aid until I get accredited. No grooming school in Wisconsin has been accredited, which is why they stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Because they changed the rules where like you had to get accredited in order to start doing it. So they made them stop.
They were accredited
they were?
when I went, but then they decided they no longer wanted to put the money to do that.
I plan to, but it sounds like it's going to be
It probably is. You're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops.
It's going to be a thing.
That's the reality of it. But you know what? I think people need to understand that. If you want to go to school, or if you're encouraging people to go to school, research the school, because they're not all equal. And,
And
it's a
uh,
lot of people that are doing things, I'm just going to say it, kind of shady, and they get away with it,
yes.
and they shouldn't be getting away with it.
Every
It's only going to
state
hurt
does have some sort of
rules.
approval program. Iowa is the only one that's a little bit different because they already have legislation for groomers in general. So they don't have as many hoops to jump through to
Right.
become a school. So that's the only one that's slightly different. But all of the ones at least in the lower 48, do require some sort of approval program. And a lot of people have no idea. Most of the programs that run it, like the departments, are like one or two people for the whole state. There's two people that work in the department in Wisconsin, and that's a pretty big state. Like,
Yeah. And I think grooming is such an unregulated industry that a lot of us have just flown under the radar for years. You know what?
that's like the
I
1099
don't
stuff
right.
too.
I don't think anybody, I'm not faulting anybody for that, because I started in 92 and I didn't know a lot of the stuff I know now. But here's the thing: when and we need to do better, and we need to expect better. And there's really no reason to not be doing better. Because here's the thing: I know nobody likes government regulation, but it's there for a reason, and it's there for a reason. It protects the consumer. It protects us, and it protects us if we're owners. It protects us if we're employees, and that's not a bad thing. I don't know. My 2 cents. I'll get off my soapbox now. Anyway, I went to grooming school.
You went to grooming school.
And I graduated. And then I worked in I worked in a salon for a while, and then I like to refer to it as underground. I started grooming in my basement. We had a basement that was set up. The house we lived in used to have a beauty salon, so everything was there.
Now I really want to theme one to being like a grooming underground.
Oh no, we're gonna change the name. No,
Have like the door even be like the look of a cave as you're going into the cave.
It felt like that. I did that
Or dungeon.
for about 11 years. I worked kind of alone. This was before the internet. So I wasn't connecting with other groomers. I knew the All American show existed. I had been to one show when I graduated, but I'd never gone back after that.
Well, I'm sure right after you graduated, it was pretty scary.
It was.
It's fucking overwhelming.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. It is overwhelming. Absolutely. But so I never went back, and I never really thought I would look back. And then I worked full time in retail and just part-time grooming for a few years. And then I was like, and I was in and out of pet sitting during this time too. It's like, oh, it's too much. Oh, I'll do it. No, it's too much. And then I was like, you know what? I really want to groom full time. Why am I not grooming full time? I met through friends of ours, another groomer, and I'm like, this is what I should be doing. And she was hiring, so I worked for her. But I always tell people I'm not a good employee. I'm much better being my own boss, because I just like things my way. And this is kind of an industry where you can do things your way.
Yeah.
You can work for yourself and do it your way. So I worked for
I think that's why I like it so much.
Yeah.
Is because I can do it my way, and it's still, as long as I get the right end point, it's fine. I mean, as long as, and taking care of the dogs.
Absolutely.
Safety and all of that first. But
oh yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. This salon was where I actually started grooming cats professionally. I had not groomed cats professionally for the first 12 years of my grooming career. I bathed my own cats, trimmed their nails, and even then I only bathed them, once in a why, maybe a year, because they groom themselves. Eye roll, big eye roll. But I started working at this salon, and the owner groomer did cats, and I watched her, and I'm like, why am I not doing cats? And so I brought my own cats from home, and I groomed them. I gave them haircuts, and it was like, okay, yep, I'm gonna do this. And she started scheduling me cats. So I started grooming cats. And then from there, I opened my own salon. That's when I finally got my own brick and mortar salon. Cute little place, just one room. It used to be a barber shop. And I remember seeing the for rent sign go up, and it had literally gone up that day when I seen it. And I stopped and I looked in the window, and I had always envisioned a cute little salon with a black and white checkered floor. And this place just happened to have a black and white checkered floor. And I don't know.
Was that in Racine?
Yeah, yeah. And
Oh,
it's right off of
was
Taylor
it
Avenue.
one of the
Yes,
old
it's an
buildings?
old building, old brick building, really neat. I mean, it was a real tiny kind of.
Do you remember what year?
What year it was?
Yeah,
It was 2000.
No, like what year?
Oh, it was the building?
The-
Oh, it was like 19 something, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
I'm-
I'd have to go back.
I'm obsessed with
We
it.
could look it up.
And I like the biggest selling point for this one was it was built in 1903.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I'll
yes.
have to double check. It might even be older than that, but I'll look. I'll look it up. But I called, we went and looked at it. It was perfect. I mean, everything about it. We took out the sinks and put in a tub. It had a bathroom, which was like, that was the selling point, because I gotta have a bathroom, right? Yeah. My husband was able to pretty much do everything. And the floor was not in great shape. They were just sticky tiles. So he ended up peeling them up. And initially he peeled up a couple of the bad ones, and he was like, there's a terrazzo floor under here, which is a marble floor. And I was like, oh, okay, go ahead. He pulled up all the
were they
tiles.
asbestos tiles?
No, well, I don't know. Maybe
I got some
don't
of
tell
those.
on me. Don't tell because he took care of it. He took them out, rubbed and buffed and polished the floor. It was gorgeous. Yeah,
You have to show me pictures at some point.
I can do that. I think I do.
I don't think you've ever shown me pictures.
I do. I have pictures. Yeah. So I worked there. I was there for 4 years. That last year was kind of a rough year. I'd had surgery, and physically was okay, but mentally it shook me, and I had a real hard time getting back into it. And then I started having a lot of resentments with clients, because all of us, which is, I do this to myself, right? Like, I give people the power over me to take advantage. And that's how I felt. I felt like they're taking advantage of me, which they really weren't, because, I'm the one that was priced too low. I'm the one who'd bend over backwards whenever they would call. And now I was at this point where, like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I made a very abrupt decision, and maybe in a later episode we'll get into some of like shadow work and stuff, because I'm a very impulsive person. So I tend to like just make these really big decisions based on my we'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
Based on my emotions, and then I can't really take them back, right? Like, then I just got to see it through. So I quit. I closed the shop. I'm retiring. I'm never grooming again. And I started babysitting. Like, all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm going to babysit. And I'm babysitting my niece. And I had a couple clients that I kind of hung on to just because. But then, yeah, I was like, I don't want to babysit anymore. I love my niece, but I don't want to do this. And I really want to get back to grooming. So I think I took about a 7-8 months hiatus.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's it. I'm going back to grooming. And it's funny. So I got to tell you this side story. So one of the clients I decided to hang on to, his name was Pokey. He was a little mini poodle. And I would see Pokey once a month. I would see Pokey once a month. And once a month he'd get, brush, bath, nails. And then the next month he would get a full haircut. And then he'd be a brush, bath, nails. And then the next month he'd be a full haircut. And he was old. I mean, he had to be 14, 15 years old when I closed my shop. And I thought, well, I'll keep Pokey.
Yeah.
How many years? How much
like,
time
it won't last that long.
How much time does Pokey have left? And I don't really want to have them to have
20 years old.
Oh Lord, he must have been 17, 18 years old before he finally passed. And that dog was blind, and he was deaf. And before he passed, like months before he passed, they had told me that they had left him with a family member while they went out of town, and he wandered away from their house, this family member's house. And they were looking for him and looking for him. And they couldn't find this poor dog. Hours went by, and finally a neighbor found him. He had actually fallen into a basement window well, and he couldn't get out. But he was fine. He was fine. This dog was fine. And he hung on for like another year after that. 9 months to a year after that, he still hung on. And this dog is like indestructible.
It's amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, Pokey. And so Pokey stayed with me. But yeah, then I got back into grooming, and I just started grooming. Where did I work? I don't even remember where I worked. Oh, I spent the next couple of months bouncing around I worked at probably 4 different salons. None of them fit. Like, none of them fit. There was
They're a terrible
something
employee.
wrong with all of them. Right, because I am a terrible employee. So they were all bad. And I was like, yeah, so I used my basement again, went back underground. Only at least this time I had connections and I was going to shows then every year I was doing shows and we got the internet. So there was chat rooms. We started with petgroomer.com. That was where it started.
I think I saw, didn't they just close down?
It did recently. Well, I think it's been almost a year now.
No.
But yeah, you
I
can
have no
still,
sense
if
of
you
time.
go, well, if you go onto the website, I think it's still, the website's technically, I might still just be up, but with we're closed or something, a little farewell. But yeah, it started there with the chat rooms and the threads. And in fact, that's where I met Carrie.
Yeah.
Actually it was in petgroomer.com.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, now it's Facebook. Everything's on Facebook. Yeah. So I've dominated that whole half. So now we're out of time.
The young kids do Reddit, which I apparently have been kicked out of it for years. The dog grooming Reddit. I have no idea. The thing is I don't understand Reddit.
Yeah.
Like I try not to comment or do anything. I mostly just read things because it's helpful for information kind of stuff. But like, I don't get involved because I always screw something up. There's so many rules. There's upvotes and downvotes and like, you can't talk about this, but you can say this. And I don't.
Oh yeah. Too many. Yeah.
And it's not like I'm doing anything like horrible. It'll just be like, I'll accidentally say a swear word that's kind of like one of those iffy ones, like damn it or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
It's worse than damn it. I know what you mean.
It's ones that are like where I normally would be like, oh, that's a iffy kind of swear word. And I don't think about it. And like, it just I just kind of like, sometimes you just also, thinking about it, it's been years. It was probably in 2020 and I was not a good person in 2020.
Were any of us?
I was going through some shit. I came out of it on the other side much better than I was.
There was definitely some stuff.
Something
happened in 2020. Wasn't there like something? I don't know. We'll have to look that up.
Crazy.
We'll have to look that up and see if there was something going on. Well, what about you? Tell me about your grooming journey. How did you begin?
So
you were born with it, right? Scissors in hand.
Born. I mean, I always kind of knew I wanted to work with animals. I grew up on a farm, so with my grandparents, and we had chickens for a while. I haven't gotten over the chickens. They are the worst. Those ones were the worst. I'm trying to get over my fear of chickens because I want chickens for the eggs. And I think they are cool birds. I just can't get over, like, I used to get pecked to death by our fucking chickens. So anyways, good chickens, mostly it was cows and pigs. Yeah. I spent most of my young life on the farm with the animals, and we have dogs and like that kind of stuff, and cats, barn cats, inside cats. There's just animals everywhere. No, not llamas. It was llamas. Llamas are the spitting ones.
Honestly, I don't know if I could tell them apart if I seen them.
Llamas.
I probably could, but I don't have that much faith in myself.
If I saw them together, if I saw just one, and I wouldn't be able to tell.
That's what I mean, right? If you put them side by side, I think I'd be able to tell you which is which. But
so, anyways, grew up on a farm. Loved being with animals. I am autistic and ADHD, but didn't find out until I was 30 years old. I had a hard time in school. And so I didn't have a great home life either. I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point. Didn't have a great home life at that point, like in my teenage years. And I sucked at school and I didn't understand how to come in and communicate with people, and I was kind of just in survival mode most of the time. And so I was struggling with my grades, and I went to talk to the counselor. They had their like meetings that they had to do with everybody. And he's like, well, what are you wanting to do when you grow up? And I said I wanted to be a veterinarian because that's the only thing I could think of. Yeah. Like, I lived in a town of 500, and you work with animals, you're a veterinarian. Yeah. And, or a zoo. Or you work two. Those are the only two I thought. I either work zoologist. I either work in a zoo or I'm a veterinarian. Yeah. So there was nothing else.
Had no idea.
And so I said I wanted to be a veterinarian, which yes, was a lofty goal, lofty goal, especially for an undiagnosed ADHD and autistic kid. That would have been interesting. But he told me I would never be able to make it. And so
Fuck him.
yeah, I will say at the time I didn't have the confidence in myself to be rebellious about it, but I did remember that for the rest of my life. And so I tried, my grandma pushed me into doing like CNA, and then I tried paramedic. I did a lot. I tried a lot of things. I tried phlebotomy and it was mostly medical. And cause I liked it. I just had a hard time with like the study game, the school. So I liked the actual things. Um, but my empathy was not under control and I was burning myself out constantly. I was working as a CNA and kind of just like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I'm just going to keep working like this. It was fine. I was like 20. It was fine. No, I was 22 at this point. No, 21. I was 21 because I met John right before my 22nd birthday. So I was 21 and I had gotten out of a bad relationship. We'll probably talk about that at some point. And he had always, like, I had dated him for 3 years and he would not let me have a pet, specifically a dog. I had gotten a cat only because I moved into my dad's house, like he had was renting his old house to me. So, and my boyfriend had moved with me. So I got it that way. But other than that, he would not let me have a cat or an animal in general. Yeah, I should have known. So many red flags. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we don't see them all the time.
And I was young and stupid and, and not very confident in myself. So I kicked him out. Finally got my shit together and I kicked him out. And before he had even moved all of his stuff out, I had found a dog on Craigslist. I was actually looking for a big, like a medium to large size dog. I was thinking that was more my style. And I had been looking on Craigslist because I was dirt broke because he had drank all of my money away. So I was dirt broke and in debt. So not a great time to be like getting a dog, but I decided to get a dog. And like I went on Craigslist because I knew rescues would never get me. And I kept seeing this little cockapoo and he looked so sad. I'll try to find the picture to share with everyone. Because I know I have it somewhere, but like he just looked he was not this dog. And it was a terrible picture too. Like I'm like, that's not what I want. But like I kept ending every time it came across, I would click on this stupid thing. And I'm like, no, I've seen that one before. And finally I'm like, obviously there's something in the universe. I don't, at this time I was not super spiritual, but I kind of had like this kind of, which I kind of still do, overall the universe kind of thing. And I'm like, something is telling me I need to take this down. So I at least got to meet it. So I met up with them and it was this family and I'm pretty sure they were just like, it was a Hispanic family, in Waukegan. And I'm pretty sure they were just like breeding a lot of dogs because it sounded like they had a bunch of them at home. They also had a bunch of children, but they handed me this dog and he was stained yellow from pee and he was matted. He was so matted that they told me he was fixed and I didn't find out till later that he still had his boy parts.
His boy parts?
Yeah, so he got fixed a lot later than I would have liked. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Anyways, so like they handed him to me and he just like immediately like he did the like latching his arms around my arms thing. And I'm like, damn it. And they wanted $250 for him. Of course they did. Because they're trying to pay their rent. And I'm like, oh God. So it was basically, I spent the last bit of money that I had. It was the $250 for him. And then I had a little bit more that I went and later got him like what he needed from the store. And then I ate ramen for the next week.
Nothing wrong with ramen. I like ramen.
Yeah. It was super healthy.
And I didn't go to college, so.
I got Nibbler, and I
Nibbler.
went to talk to the groomer, and it was probably cheap.
Right.
Like, it was at PetSmart. It was probably cheap. I don't remember how much they quoted me, but like, it was more than I expected because I had never dealt with a groomer before. And so I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? And I talked to my dad, and he was like, hey, I have this pair of clippers that I use. Sometimes his one dog would need like a little bit of her butt shaved. So he had these like those giant like Oster clippers.
Oh, God, for like what, livestock?
Like, no, not the
Not
livestock ones, but like the old, like
Just the old Osters.
old Oster, like those giant ones. He had one of those, and he gave them to me, and I shaved him down with the 10, I think.
If you're lucky.
It was whatever
It was either a
out
10
there.
or a 30, so yeah.
There was no scissoring. His paw pads were all sorts of messed up. I didn't nick him somehow, but I got all the matting off, and it was terrible. It was the worst haircut I've ever seen in my life. But we had kind of like, it was like such a bonding moment, and like, I just realized, I'm like, this is a thing. And so I'm like, I had met John a little bit later, and he convinced me to leave the nursing home and start at a doggy daycare, just working in the daycare. And I was still grooming him because I enjoyed doing it. It still looked terrible, but it was done, and he got his bath, and that's all that mattered. Yeah, he was clean, and he was not ever mad at it, and it was fine. And but the groomer there was like, your dog's haircut is janky, man. Like, let me fix it. And I'm like, but I like grooming him. And so she actually taught me how to groom him. Like, she taught me how to groom him better. She showed me how to change the blade.
Yeah, do something a little bit long.
She showed me properly how to do like paw pads.
Okay.
And like like how she properly does the sanitary, and like showed me how to kind of scissor up the face and that kind of stuff. And just enough so that I could make it look halfway decent.
Yeah.
And then I started watching lots of videos on the YouTubes, and I was like, this is really interesting. I really like doing this. And I convinced her, she was grooming my dad's dogs at the time. I convinced her, I'm like, could you just like, can I watch you groom my dad's dogs? And she's like, I'll just show you how to do it. So she taught me how to groom my dad's dog. They were like basically like a 5 Oliver. It wasn't anything spectacular or anything, but she taught me how to groom my dad's dogs, and I just kind of started going with that. And then I got kind of what I thought was going to be an apprenticeship. It was not. It was slave labor, and ended after a dog died because she wouldn't listen to me. Like, basically, like, the dog, apparently had been diagnosed with congestive heart failure. And the owners told the owner of the shop, like my boss / master.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
But no one told me. But I had seen the dog before, and I was like, she had me shaving it down, and I noticed that it had like a distended stomach, and that it was like barking a lot, and like just acting. It was kind of doing a lot of like dancing. It seemed really like different than I had remembered it. And I mentioned all the things to her, and she's like, no, it's fine. Just keep going. Okay. So I bathed it, and I started to dry it. And once I got it to high, it started having a dryer seizure, which at the time I didn't know what that was.
Right.
But I knew something was wrong, so I stopped. At that point, the dog did stop for a minute, and I was like, okay, I'm going to just have him dry. Like, he stopped, and I'm like, he seems fine. I didn't know exactly what that was. It just seemed like he was like upset. And so I'm like, I'm going to let him do in the cage dryer. I'd gotten a lot of the main water off. I'm like, I'll just cage dry him. So I put him in the cage dryer, and she sees me putting him in there and is like, what are you, he was like a bee shot or something. He needs to be fluff dried and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, he got really upset. Like, I don't want to stress him out. And she's like, no. And she put the dog back on the table and put the dryer in my hand and flipped it on high power right from like,
right.
And the dog immediately started having another dryer seizure. And I tried to turn it down. And as she was yelling at me, then I noticed the dog just stopped And then he kind of like fell over. And I'm like, we need to go. Like at that point, I'm like, we need to go. I don't know pet medical, but I know enough about human stuff that this is not good.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be like this.
And she's arguing with me. She's like, oh, it just needs some air. And so I'm holding it. She takes me outside and she's like, it just needs some air. And then I'm standing out there holding him. And he pees and poops.
Yeah.
All over. Just he
defecates and urinates.
Yes. He evacuates all of his bowels on her feet, which was hilarious. And she was distracted with that. And I just, at that point, I just like jolted, not jolted, I just bolted off. There was a vet across the street. I bolted across the street.
So, yeah, you could take him there.
It was like one of like a 4-lane street.
And you
just bolted. He was still like alive and there. He was not in good shape. He was in shock. But that's at that point we found out it was his vet actually. So they already knew that he had congestive heart failure. And so at that point they called the owners and they had come planning to put him down at this point. And as they got there and were like saying goodbye, he passed. Yeah. So
please tell me that person is no longer grooming.
I believe she is. She still owns a business. She blamed it on me.
Of course she did.
Luckily it was
my own boss.
I had worked for the nursing home that the owner of the dog she was one of the administrators of. And so she knew me. And so she messaged me after the owner of the business, put the blame on me. She's like, it wasn't actually your fault. They couldn't really prove anything.
And the thing of it is, even when we know it's not our fault or there's nothing we can do, it still does something to us.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh yeah, she yelled at me when I was crying in the.
I think most groomers are empaths.
Yeah.
I think some groomers maybe lean into it more than other groomers. Sometimes groomers will push that down and try to ignore it. But I don't know how you can work in this field and not be, empathetic. And so even when we know it's not our fault, we still feel it very deeply. They're not our dogs. Owners call and say, oh, so-and-so passed away. And it's like, they're 20 years old. You knew they were going to pass away. And yet you're blubbering and it's not even your dog. Like I've seen this dog 3 times in its life. And yet here I am,
I have
taking
Christmas cards. Like I have some on my bulletin board out here from like some of my clients from my local grooming.
Yeah. And we feel it.
Yeah.
So
like I had a really hard time leaving actually. Like they had to be like, okay, we're letting you go because you need to stop.
Nobody's gonna take care of them.
Yeah.
The way I take care of them. I had a hard time leaving that vet job too, because it was like, I felt like if I go, no one's going to take care of them the way I take care of them. And I did hear after I left, there was another worker there that was not a good person. And a lot of bad shit happened.
I have heard only good things since then. So
good.
I'm happy, I did check in with my clients to make sure everything was okay. And like my boss did let me like have I basically was able to like give them the choice of like, they can follow me. And like, she gave me like total rights to them, which was really nice of her. And I've checked in with them. A lot of them decided to stay because it was an hour drive up here.
Right.
But they all have been very happy. There was a couple that I had not updated the notes. And so I had to send updated notes because I didn't have I changed things. I'm really bad about that. Yeah. But it was hard.
So how long have you been grooming?
I always say 10 plus years because I don't remember. It was like around 2012, I guess. So yeah, like 13-ish years. Yeah. After that job, I immediately left. And I actually had gotten a job with this doggy daycare it was a daycare and boarding facility. It was a Central Park location. So those are all franchisees. So it's like they all have separate owners, but they all kind of follow the same like basic outline. Anyways, so they were set up for like grooming and everything, but they had not been able to find a groomer to work there. And so it had only been maybe 3 months at that place where I was apprenticing. This guy hired me as the only groomer. I just was like, yeah, I can do it, you know? And he had like tools and everything there. So I was able to slowly build my collection while using his tools.
Yeah.
So, it was, at the time, neither of us knew, it was a 1099. So we didn't know about all the stuff yet. And I worked there for quite a while. It was 3 years, I think. And built a client, had to build the clientele there. And I did a lot. I did treat it like it was my business, which did make it ended up being very like not making me, I was losing money, to be honest. Like at that point.
Like unified school teachers, where you're spending half your paycheck on school supplies for your students.
So when I left there, it was on good terms. It was just kind of I'm like, I found this job it's going to be a next step in my career kind of thing. And I appreciate what you did for me. I'd like to pass this on to someone else kind of thing. So it was very like cordial. The place that I was going to was supposed to be something where I was going to be improving more, to be more from like just basic groomer more to in like styling kind of things, where I was doing like scissoring, like extensive scissoring and stuff like that. The She Who Must Not Be Named that I've told you about. It was the shop that was supposed to be that kind of thing. They were supposed to be, helping me improve. They were going to help me get into grooming competition because I was interested in that. None of that was true. I learned a lot about what I don't want to be as a groomer. Did not last long. 6 months. There was a whole thing. I've told Brenda about it. It's something that I don't make a
we're not gonna.
I'm not doing that on.
Yeah, we're not gonna name anything because we don't. I mean, we don't want to give that person any.
I don't want to give
any
them
kind of power because they don't deserve it.
Yeah, they don't.
They don't deserve it.
So yeah, I left that place, and I luckily actually was able to get job at a mobile groomer in the Lake County, Illinois area. I'm just going to call them out. It's Calling All Paws. They were great. If I was going to talk dirty about them, I would not say their name
either. So,
but I'm going to say nice things. And yeah, they were great. I was going through a lot during that time. This is when I started getting into my spiritual journey, as well as my neurodivergent kind of journey. When I got I got my like diagnosis.
Yeah.
I say diagnosis like that because I'm not officially diagnosed, but my psychologist, my therapist is like,
oh yeah,
we're not going to rule that out. And we talk about it like I have it. So
yeah. Makes sense.
But we kind of decided it's not something, because I'd have to pay it out of pocket, and it's just not something that it's worth doing for me, because I work for myself, so I don't have to worry about accommodation. If I was working for someone else, she was like, then we would probably want to get that so that you can get accommodations. Yeah. So I worked for them. They were awesome. They were kind of a smaller business at the time. I think they have like 6 fans now. Amazing. And that's where I started training people. They had me training people on the job because they were having, it was at a time when we were having a hard time finding groomers, and they were getting more dogs.
I think we're always having a hard time finding groomers. I think it just happens. Like, I just think that we were to get good people.
We were finding the best we could find
and training them
and trying to train them. And I trained.
You just check your toes.
There's 5 people that I trained there that are still grooming. So I trained a few more.
Thank you,
Stephanie. And I realized that I really enjoyed teaching. I also learned in 2020 that I was not going to be able to physically groom like that for much longer, because in 2020, things happened.
And we spent that year. I can't remember what it was.
weeks in quarantine, unable to work. And during that time, I went through a very, very wild mental thing because I didn't have anything to do. Like the school wasn't like, it was something I was like, someday I want to have a school, but it wasn't like a thing at the time. And so it's not like I could work on the school. I had nothing. I was like grooming model dogs in my like living room. I was so bored. I started painting all of the like light switch covers. I was losing my mind.
To do.
But I also learned to slow down and I started listening more to my body and relaxing when I needed to relax. Not as much as I do now. I wasn't listening to my body great, but I started to. And I started to realize how much better it was because I have chronic illnesses on top of my other shit, being a groomer. And so I started to, during that time, I was watching a lot of TikToks. So learning a lot about Tiger King and a lot about neurodivergence. Those were the two topics on the TikToks that and so I was doing a lot of like learning about neurodivergence. And I'm like, yeah, I'm ADHD. I always figured I was ADHD. And I had gotten a diagnosis at 18.
Yeah.
But it was from my normal doctor.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So like,
I don't
fill out this test.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was kind of starting to explore that. And then we just got the okay to go back to work. And I was super stressed because I still wasn't sure about how I felt with everything. As far as like contact with people because I am autoimmune. And so I was nervous, but with mobile, like I was able to come up with a system for me that worked well. I still have not gotten, I've not gotten sick. It's okay, girl.
Don't get her going.
From that, at least. So I was nervous. I was very anxious at the time. There was also, I was feeling a lot of stress because of just everything going on in my brain as well. And so we got to go back to work and all of a sudden I'm using muscles that I haven't been using. Like I was making sure to like get up and we went for walks. We walked a lot around our neighborhoods during that time. But they're not the same muscles that you use for grooming, especially on mobile grooming. It's different.
Yeah.
Within 2 days, I had overused my muscles so much that I was just like seized up and I couldn't move. Everything hurt. If someone touched me, I was like screaming. I was desperately trying to use those rollers, like those body roller things, release some of the tension. So what it is I'm hypermobile. And pre this, I had some pain because I was using my muscles a lot. Because my muscles have to overcompensate for the connective tissue, basically. So they just get overused, and then my muscles get tight and painful. They kind of they'll actually go dystonic, where they start to go and just, I don't do it, but like a lot of people when they'll like kind of have like a thing where their hands go in a weird, but usually it's in my like legs. So I hadn't been using all the muscles. So my body was like, they had kind of gotten used to that. And now all of a sudden I was super crazy overusing them because of course it's like gonna be the busiest freaking time.
Right.
My day was packed.
Yeah.
So I like, and then, I'm also having to basically go to the bathroom in the van because there's no bathrooms available.
Yeah.
And bring my food and figure that out. And like, it's a whole thing. So I was with the stress and all of that, like my muscles just like couldn't handle it. And I seized up and it was bad. And eventually I did get my muscles like calmly back. I had to take days off, but eventually they kind of came back where I could go back to work. But it wasn't even fully back to work. It was, I can do it just barely. I need to figure something out.
We need to think about our futures. Yeah. I don't have a 401k.
Yeah.
I don't have a retirement plan.
And I didn't want to like leave grooming.
Right.
Like I love grooming.
Yeah.
So that's when I started looking into teaching, and I looked into a lot of different avenues and different ways of doing it. And eventually I found we had come to the conclusion that we needed to find a different location than the one we were looking at. So we were looking around and we decided to look, we're like, let's look for, because the problem that we hit was that the renovation was going to be so costly because we have a very specific need,
Yep.
like with the voltage and the water. So we were like, let's look for something that would be similar. So like either a grooming salon or a hair salon. And John gave me, he had to be at least 1 hour from work.
He couldn't be more than an hour from work.
Yeah.
Not that he wanted to drive an
1
hour.
hour.
He didn't want to drive more than an hour.
Yeah, 1 hour was the limit. That was his max limit.
Okay.
This is exactly.
And this is an hour.
Exactly 59 minutes.
On a good day.
But yeah, so I was just looking generally for hair salons. And we were realizing how hard the state approval program in Illinois was. And we thought in Wisconsin, we researched hard, and we could not at that time find an approval program. And so we were like, cool, we wouldn't have to go through all of that, which it's not that we don't want that like legislation. It's just expensive.
Well, and
yeah,
and you want to get going.
Yeah. And so we're not planning on moving, but we were planning on we were going to find a place for me to work. And it just like all of a sudden this building came up. It was a hair salon. And it was for sale. We were planning on renting, but it was for sale.
And there's an apartment upstairs.
There's an apartment upstairs, and it had been on the market for like 9 months.
I was gonna say it was been on the market for a while.
Yeah, it was on the market for like 9 months, and so it was like she had lowered it to her very lowest she could go.
Yeah,
basically. And so we got really lucky. We came and looked at it, and it had been fairly newly renovated. It's not all old, like it's built in 1903, but it's not all, they've drywalled and stuff like that. So we checked it out, and one thing that sold me is she has a very eclectic taste, like I do. As you can see you might be able to see if you are on the YouTubes, this painting around here, this was all here originally in this room, and I decided to keep this room because it was the only one that wasn't all like a lot of pink. One thing, it's just not my color. She was like you with the pink, and I liked what she had. It just wasn't my vibe.
It's okay. I still like you. It doesn't matter that you're not.
This bathroom was bright pink with a chandelier painted over it was so cool, but not my style.
I think I've seen that before you painted, or maybe I've seen the picture.
You probably saw a picture.
Yeah.
I loved it, but yeah, just not me. So I kept this, and I kept the lobby actually mostly. There's a mural on there. That mostly sold it for me. And then I also realized upstairs there was probably a hardwood floor.
Did they cover?
Yeah. So my brain, like, ooh, I like old things brain. So it was a good deal, and it was structurally sound, which is important. There's nothing major we have to worry about. There's like things we're going to have to do more cosmetically. We have to do our siding and we're going to do the deck and stuff like that. But like the structure is sound. And so we bought it, and we sold our old house, and we moved into the apartment upstairs so that we could save money while we were building this out. And actually the only thing we had the contractors do, because they ended up it was like at the height of where all of the building materials were ridiculously expensive. And so we had the like bathing area done by the contractors, and then John put in all of these floors and painted all of the other rooms. And then put together all of my furniture and shit.
Good man.
Yeah.
Good man. It's a keeper.
So
it's a keeper.
Yeah. It ended up being more expensive than we expected. Everything was.
Always is.
But we got it together, and now the hardest part, we're doing good. We are making money this year. Not a whole lot, but I was just going for not losing money this year. That's the goal.
That's the dream.
That's why we live upstairs.
That's right. That's the dream.
We are gaining momentum. The hardest part is finding students.
Send your students.
It is expensive, but it's
you
also
get what you pay for.
Yeah, it is a very comprehensive. I hate to toot my own horn, but like when they leave here, they are ready to go to a job.
Yeah.
All they need is training on that specific job.
Right.
Like you need to go through them, every like you would with every
job, right? You need to teach them how you do things.
Like our last girl, she went to a mobile business and she got trained in the van for a week.
And now she's on her own. Yeah.
And she's been doing great. So
I want to talk about how we met. So funny story. I was at another grooming salon. I don't know if I was working there. I think I was working there. I was part-time. I fill in from time to time for another groomer. And I was there, and then she and the owner of the business, Allison, she's like, "Do you know this person?" And I don't know how she found your social media school. I don't know how it came up for her, because I didn't see it. But I don't know if it was, I don't know. She found you.
Yeah.
And she shows it to me, and she's like, "Do you know who this is?" Because I know everybody. I've never seen I know everybody. And I'm like, "No, I don't know who that is." And I think I called or texted your number, but you didn't respond.
Oh.
Yeah, you're so rude. Yeah, I know. But then
you didn't see it.
No, but then
either that or I probably responded in my head.
Yeah, we did that too. But lo and behold, we had actually both signed up to be pet tech instructors. And so it was kind of like, I'm going to meet this person, this person that dissed me. No, I'm going to meet this person. And so of course it was like, tell me how she is, because you know how we are as groomers, right? We're like,
check them out.
Oh yeah. Who is this? And, I'm the groomer in Racine, where I force myself on other groomers. So like when Allison opened her salon, I'm like, I'm in there introducing myself.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Brenda. I'm a groomer. And, and it's like, because to me, we are not competition. We are colleagues.
Yeah.
And so I make it a point to kind of force myself on everybody. So I was going to force myself on you, whether you liked it or not, which is probably how I became your emotional support person. But so then I met you at the training.
Yeah.
We trained in Illinois. We did our training in Illinois.
Yeah, in Chicago. I was going, I wanted to teach my students CPR first aid. So I was getting the training so I could become a instructor.
I needed a side hustle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know the first part of that.
That's how I met you?
Yeah. I didn't know that you
the Allison sneaky thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, that was
and then the first time I met Allison.
Who is this? Like,
she jumped on me and hugged me.
because I had built you up.
She used to apologize.
I had built you up.
I'm like, it's fine, man. It's fine. It was startling, but it's fine.
Yeah, so that's how we met. Then I met you there, and then from that moment on, I think we just kind of connected. I forced myself into this building to see what you were doing. I think we came over before you were even done, So maybe I did see it before you painted. I seen that bathroom, so I don't know if
I know I posted pictures,
or maybe it was posted, but I just know I seen stuff before you had done it. But yeah, so we've been friends ever since. And
yep.
Now we're travel buddies, and we do our CPR classes together.
Yep.
In fact, I don't think I've ever done one without you. I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah.
I need you as much as you need me.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. Next question.
Yeah, next question. You want to talk about our relationships with
witchiness
and witchcrafts? Whatever we want to talk about, say about it. I guess.
As a kid, I was always kind of intrigued by like witches and witchiness, right? Like you see the movies, so I was always kind of drawn to it, but I didn't really know much about it. I wasn't raised in any specific religion or path, right? Much my parents they had a couple of paths that they walked, but they had
checked them out. They weren't for him.
No, but they decided that they were going to let us make our own decisions, which I totally appreciate. Although I had some issues with it for a while because it was like, well, I don't know anything about anything, and you should have taught me something.
They probably could have helped, but
Well, and that was I
at
went
least
through.
they
I
took the first step.
Right. I went through that in the middle of life thinking that they should have given me something, but then I realized no, I'm actually really grateful that they did it the way they did it because
Yeah.
as a grown up, I can totally research and learn about all these other paths and make a decision, an informed decision that fits me.
I
Whereas a
think
child,
if I was a kid and if I was interested and asking about it, then as an adult, I would then be like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about all of them, you know?
yeah, and I can't say that I don't know. May have been. My mom was a very open person. Like I could talk to her about it. Not that she knew, every subject, because of course she didn't. But like if I went to her and said, "Can we talk about this?" She was always open to talking. But I don't think it wasn't until I became an adult that those questions came up about, faith and religion and paths and stuff like that. Just like, what do I believe and what does that look like? It didn't really come up until I was an adult. But like I said, for a little bit there, I was kind of disappointed that, well, you didn't give me any, basis. But then it was like, no, I'm kind of glad that you gave me what you did give me because it could have led me in a different direction that wouldn't have been comfortable either. I mean, there was just, anyways, that's another tangent. So I'd always kind of liked that would you buy, but didn't really know much about it. One of those things where like I got to be a groomer, I didn't know anything about grooming. It was like I got to be a vet or work in a zoo.
Yeah.
And like when it came to like a spiritual path, I either go to church or I don't go to church, right? Like I didn't know that there was any, I didn't know there were different churches. I didn't know that you could pick that there was different religions because I had friends that, grew up Christian and they did the, I don't know, whatever
Confirmation.
well, not so much confirmation, because I don't know if she was Lutheran. I don't know what they did. It's not the same, but
I
she
grew
had
up
to do,
Catholic.
yeah. So you have the communion and the confirmation and stuff like that. She had something different, but she did have to go to church classes when she was younger or something. I don't know. Anyways, I remember that, that was my best friend and she would, we would be playing and all of a sudden she had to go do this church thing. And I just remember thinking, thank God I don't have to do that. And I just say, thank God. But so anyways, I fast forward to go ahead.
I just realized that we totally forgot to do our tarot.
That's okay. I can still pull it in a minute. We'll pull it in a minute.
Because we also have to do an oracle pull.
We'll do that too. We can just do them together. We'll
do them at the
get
end.
the structure figured out eventually. But it wasn't until much later. I think I was in my third, and I was learning things about myself, and I was on a journey of self knowledge and seeking. Right, and I was encouraged to look into different paths and religions and kind of see what was out there that spoke to me. And I did went to a Buddhist temple and checked that out. I did go to church because we had, my husband was raised Catholic. Our children, we had our kids baptized and everything because I don't didn't matter to me. Like that's what his family wanted to do. Okay, we did it.
20 years.
Right, I don't care. Yeah, you're right. I'm 19, 20 years old. Yeah, okay, sure, let's do it. 18, 20 years old. Well, 24, three of them. But so I was kind of looking for something and I started kind of loosely looking into Wicca, right? Because that's what you can find. If you look up, there's a lot of Wicca out there, which is, excuse me, which is more of a organized.
Yes.
It's very organized. They have a structure like most religions. They have a, very specific structure that they follow. So that's kind of what I was looking at. But what I was discovering was that none of these things were really like I could pull aspects of all these things that I liked, but I wasn't locked into just one thing. Like there was stuff about the Catholic Church that I appreciated. There was definitely stuff about the Buddhist temple that I appreciated. And there was stuff about Wicca that I appreciated, but I couldn't fit myself wholly into one spot. So I just kind of sat with that for years. I kind of sat with that for years where my head was telling me, well, I'm still really pulled in this direction. Well, then I started doing a little more. I learned a little bit more about paganism and, and just that natural spirituality, right? Or nature based spirituality. So that was really kind of the pull for me. It was the paganism. So I started finding some books and, and then I don't know what happened in 2020. I don't know. Something happened in 2020. Nobody was working. I found myself with a lot of time on my hands. And I actually found an online course company. They did all these. They had it was based it was based in England, and they had offered all these courses. And at the time, they were offering like dirt cheap. They were like $20 a course. And so So I'm like going through, and the first one I did was like a cat behavior, I think was, and I took that course, and then I'm going through it, and I'm like, well, what else could I take? Because I got all this time on my hands, and I found they had like a Wicca course, and they had a couple different like Wicca. They had a couple animal ones, a couple witchy ones. So then I started doing that, and that was really kind of when it really stuck for me. That this is a real path. Kind of like when I discovered grooming, like holy shit, I can actually do this. This is my job now. This can be a job. And that's what I found that, hey, this is actually a path that I can be on and that makes sense to me. And I can pick and choose, right? So I'm not Wiccan. I don't pretend to be Wiccan. I'm pagan. I do call myself a witch. I think a witch is a lot of things. Woman in total control of herself.
I like that. Yeah.
That's a witch. And so I do use that term to describe myself. I am eclectic, just meaning I pull from everywhere. Sometimes I'll use something, other things I don't use. Don't have my practice is very loose. I don't really do spell work. I don't cast circles and get real, like I see it. I've read it about it. I tried it, but it's one of those things where it just didn't really stick with me. But there are other aspects about um, the the uh, the path that do speak to me.
Yeah.
Like the elemental magic, I'm into that. Anything nature, like get me in the woods and I feel better. Get me next, on a beach and I feel better. I'm those are the places that I want to be. So yeah, that's kind of where my path kind of started, and it's kind of always evolving. It's always evolving. I find different things that I'm drawn to, and I'll get really into something for a little while, and then it's like, okay, I'm kind of I'm on board with that because I got that ADHD brain too, right? ADHD brain, so it's like squirrel. And so then I'll put that aside and I'll start kind of playing with something else and just just melding it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? When did you?
So I always kind of like had an interest in like witchcraft. I was like the kid in the playground that was like making little potions out of like leaves and rocks.
Water. Yeah, the mud. Stirring it. Yeah, I did that.
Yeah. That was my thing. And so like I kind of always had like that kind of interest, but I grew up very Catholic. I went through all of the things, all of it awkward, all of it like I never understood it either. Like no one explained why we do the things. Like and so like I just didn't get it. And it was not so much that, I mean, now I can look back at it and understand it more, but like, it wasn't so much that like there's anything wrong with it necessarily, but it's just, it wasn't being like shown to me in the right way.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Christianity in general is very rooted in a lot of pagan things anyways.
Right.
When I started learning more about paganism, I actually started understanding like Christianity.
Oh, that's why.
It's like, but yeah, when I was in like middle school, I was kind of introduced to Wicca actually from a friend of mine, one of the few people that my mom.
Silver Ravenwolf.
Huh?
And Silver Ravenwolf, you get to where you get, isn't that a teen witch? I hear that all the time. That's where a lot of young people had gotten their start. When they read that book, and
I have no idea. She just told me about it. It was like the one family that like my egg donor would actually let me spend the night at their house. But like I do really like she was really cool. But she was kind of just dabbling in it and learning about it. And her parents were kind of very with
New
it. Like,
agey and
yeah, I'm very just explore it kind of thing. And so she told me a little bit about it, and I got a little bit. I did kind of as I got older when I found ways to research things without my mother finding out. I would research into it more, but I never really fully, I didn't, it was interesting, but a lot of it was because it was more organized stuff that I was seeing. I was not as interested. So I'm like, eh. Also just going through like a whole like atheism phase too, where I was just like, nothing exists. Cause
yeah,
20s.
yeah.
Yeah, but my real dip into like all of it was actually around 2020. It
What's
was
that year?
when I was, all of those, when I was getting into all of the neurodivergent stuff.
Yeah,
A lot of neurodivergent people kind of get into witchcraft and paganism in general, that
yeah,
kind of stuff, and Wicca, but we all tend to gravitate towards it. And so it just kind of became TikTok almost kind of like my algorithm just kind of like developed that.
yeah.
And I was like, you like this, so this too.
Right.
So I started getting a lot more about it on there where they were talking about it more on a level where I could understand it, where it was like, this is why I do this.
Yeah.
Because telling me, now you open a circle and then you do this and you say this and then this and this. Like, why? Why am I doing all those
Why?
things? But I was finding these people who were these creators who were talking about, well, this is why we do
Right.
this.
This is the intent.
This is the intention behind it. And that's what really got me is where I'm like, it's the intention of it.
Right.
And at the same time, I'm learning on the neurodivergent side that we need to be, I'm also learning that I have a dissociative, I tend to like be more like dissociative and just kind of like off in my own world kind of
Yeah.
person. And so I was learning about these things and about myself. And I was there, you need to start working, doing things with more intention and being more present. And
Yeah.
they're saying these things and I'm hearing it from the other side. And I'm like it can be together. And I'm kind of like you where it's not like I'm drawing circles and stuff like that. A lot of what I do is actually more in my imagination because I have a chronic illness. The less I move, the better. So I'm not going to waste the energy to make a circle. And it's in my, like, I have the intention of drawing the circle. And that's what's great about it. And that's why I liked about it is I can do it the way that it works for me. I can do it in a more like without, kneeling and standing up and kneeling and standing up. I've kind of moved into more of I just believe in the universe, like, and energy in general. But like at this time, I was still kind of believing like higher power, at least. Because I'm also learning about how to face my chronic illness. So I'm like, God doesn't want you to like have to recover for a day after going to church because it's so hard on you. You could just do it at home, but you could do your stuff at home. And so I changed that kind of perspective about it. And yeah, that's why I kind of liked it is there's a lot of ways you can do it.
Yeah.
And it's your own. And it's really just about the intention and being present in the moment. So that's where my practice mostly lies. I also do shadow work stuff and I have always been into like foraging and preserving and using herbs and stuff, but even more now because now I see it more as because there's the intention behind it. I see that as like part of my practice. And it is just kind of a nice way to like just imagine it as like, I don't actually think that I'm like gonna move.
Hey, I concentrate hard enough. I gotta be able to.
I don't think it.
My mind,
but I do think what that energy that I'm putting out into the world
is coming back.
Yeah, I do like to I like to do things where put an energy out into the world because I have a lot bouncing around in me all the time. So I've turned a lot of things into more my rituals. And most people looking at me would not say, "Oh, she's doing magic," because it's not. It's very subtle. But yeah, I don't know what my label would be because I know you called yourself eclectic. I don't know what any of the labels are, but I'm a me.
Well, and the beautiful thing about it is you can label yourself whatever you want to label yourself, or you don't have to label yourself. and you can still be. Like, I feel like it's definitely, the witchy community is definitely a very open and inviting and
Yeah, for the most part.
very welcoming.
There's always
There's
in
always
every
gonna be, right,
community
there's
there's
always
gonna
gonna
be
be
people.
some people that are gonna be very like, well, if you're not doing it like this, then you don't belong, which is a shame. It's really a shame. And I find that in the atheist community too. Like you mentioned being an atheist, and there's even in the atheist community, it's like if you don't totally go like doesn't exist and no, then you don't belong in that community. And I kind of feel like I still do. I belong there. I feel like I belong in that community. I belong in the agnostic community. I belong in the pagan communities. I belong in every community.
Yeah.
There's often times when I look at this world that we're living in right now, and I feel like, as an atheist, I'm more Christian than the Christians.
Yeah.
Not all of them. Please don't, take that the wrong way if you're doing the right thing. But I mean, there's a lot of people out there, sadly, that call themselves Christian, and I feel like, gosh, I'm more Jesus like than you are, and I don't even believe in that.
Yeah.
And because I feel like there's people have forgotten.
Well,
They
just
have
like
forgotten
Yeah.
you talk about what did he die for? Well, what did he die for?
there's always gonna be people who interpret
We're gonna edit
so
this.
different.
We're gonna edit some of this
Yeah.
out.
But yeah. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's important. Like, I have respect for,
I do too.
all
Whatever you believe.
whatever
right?
you believe.
Yeah.
And if I ask you about, what you believe, that means I want to hear about it.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about it if I'm just at the grocery store
Right.
or walking in. The worst is when I'm walking into the grocery store. It's a lot of people ringing bells. Christmas. I hate Christmas. Like, I love that time of year, but I hate that time at the grocery store. The grocery store is already bad, but then I have to walk past someone with a bell, and for some reason, I always get some old guy who's super mad that I like avoid him.
I have
I try to get in with crowds so I can avoid
I
it.
have a lot of opinions and feelings when it comes to like the holidays. What do you guys?
That was our show.
That was our show.
So, that was our show today. We will be back next week.
Yes.
We'll eventually let you know times and all
we'll
of that.
figure it out.
But we'll see you next week.
And as above, so below, may your pets be clean and your spirit glow. Until next time. We're gonna end.